Welcome, So-La-Rah here. I hope you guys are all doing well. I want to welcome you if you've been here from the very beginning or if you literally just joined. I'm so appreciative to each and every one of you for all of the ways that you show up and heal for yourselves and therefore the collective. And thank you for being here and for all of your support for me and my channel. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your shares. Thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for booking me for services. And thank you for your donations. So tonight I'm going to put on more of my teaching hat. There's been so much streaming in, and I've been struggling to find ways to convey the information. So I'm just going to go with the flow because my guides are wanting me to begin to tackle a topic that is it's heavy. But it needs to be broached, it needs to be dissected, it needs to be seen for what it is in order to liberate us fully and in order that we start to live in ways that, where we're more conscious of this and how, we've been affected by it so that moving forward we can do better for ourselves and for one another. So tonight I really want to talk about the family system. And I'm very, very passionate about energy, as you know, but I'm very, very, what really began to cement and solidify my own exploration into, my gifts, energy, etc., was really getting to the bottom of the family energy system and why why we operate the way we operate and what it has actually reaped for us as a society, as a population. Okay, because at the core of the matrix, which by now you're probably very aware, it is a energy harvesting, soul harvesting, narcissistic abuse template that has been utilized in order to keep us trapped in cycles of enslavement. That's pretty much what it is. And if family is the foundation for society, as it's been said, the bedrock of society, which it is, then there must be a reason, it must play a very big part in the upholding of the matrix. And this is an important thing, in my opinion, to talk about during Leo season because Leo energy is all about reconnecting to your light, to your life force. It's all about the recovery of your wounded inner child, the resurrection of your wounded inner child back into a place of light, because ultimately we weren't born into this system damaged. Yes, many of us brought forth karma, lessons we had to learn, etc., but it was ultimately the wounding of us as children that led to a lot of the ways we've chosen to function in the world, for better or for worse, okay? Now, I talked about this in the last reading about the solar plexus. So your solar plexus is also connected to your Leo energy because your solar plexus is your personal sun. And your solar plexus is the seat of your personal will. So before I get into all of that, I have some notes. I'm going to be going back and forth. I have some things that I've already been working on in my own, personal writing. I am a writer. If you didn't know this, if you're not aware, I am a writer, and I've been working on a very specific book surrounding this. This is part of that, and I will be reading an excerpt from that later on because I feel like it succinctly says what I need to say without me having to run around the mulberry bush trying to explain it, just flying by the seat of my pants kind of. So I will be reading from that later. but I have some notes here that I began to take. So the matrix family system is a sophisticated energy harvesting setup. It really is energy harvesting 101. So the family system within the context of the matrix, it is designed to kill our true potential. And when I say our true potential, I'm not talking about matrix success. I'm talking about who we are divinely. I'm talking about our Aries energy. I'm talking about how we're crowned in this lifetime. And how you're crowned in this lifetime is all about who the divine says you are, coming into this body, coming into the earth planes, okay? So you are a multi-dimensional, multifaceted, infinite being. You have so many gifts, talents, and abilities that go beyond who it is that you are in this incarnation. And that's a whole other story. But when you incarnated into the earth, you had a very specific purpose for this lifetime, and you came equipped with all of the gifts, the talents, the wisdom, the knowledge, the gnosis that you needed within your own energy field, within your own DNA, within your own codes for you to discover in order to be successful. That's your true divine purpose. It's like when I do people's tarot astrology soul mapping reports, that's what I'm tuning into, your divine purpose as depicted by your personal astrology, right? So your parents' ultimate job, our jobs as parents divinely, is to be able to connect with the divine value that's within our children. It is for us to be able to recognize their divine identity, or who God says they are in this incarnation, in order to help them connect with their own divine resources and bring out that value into the world. That's what we're supposed to be doing divinely. Now, the matrix family system and a lot of organized religion especially, and then educational systems, traditions, generational mindsets, all of this stuff teaches us the opposite. It doesn't teach us to connect with the intrinsic value that's within our children, to find the treasure that God's source has placed within them and help them to discover it too, so that they can flourish in their divine mission and purpose in this incarnation. No, instead we program that out of them. Some parents beat it out of them. Society ridicules it out of them, programs them up the wazoo, and then quote unquote educates or miseducates them out of their soul's purpose in order to make them perfect little conveyor belt matrix clones. Okay, so in other words, we do not come into families. Up until now, we have not come into families, unless your family was extremely conscious and aware. We have not incarnated into families that were interested in who we truly are divinely. They were interested in seeing us do well in the matrix, because that's what they were taught was important. Okay? But the matrix is an energy harvesting system. And so if they're teaching you to be successful in the matrix, and they are already taking on these energy harvesting principles and traditions in order to groom you into them too. It's just, what role do you play in the family system, and to what degree? Because not every family's dysfunction is going to be different. There are people with crazy levels of dysfunction, and then there are people who have moderate states of emotional and mental health that don't implement all of this craziness, so it really depends on your own family background. But to a degree, all families in the matrix system have been dysfunctional, because in order to quote unquote quote thrive in this system, you have to operate in dysfunctional ways, because the matrix system, in order to continue its craziness, it must produce, promote, proliferate disharmony and discord and dysfunction, but it passes it off as being normal, okay? So, the matrix family systems have been set up to kill our true potential, to siphon our life force, which is by way of the solar plexus, and to lead us into soul drought. In other words, to lead us into our life force being drained. So what do I mean by that? Well, your life force is drained the more you align yourself with matrix contracts and matrix ways of living, the more you're aligning yourself with death contracts. And as you align yourself with death contracts, you are draining your soul, or you're draining your light, or you're draining your life force, or you're draining your own battery, which is why we die the way we do in the matrix. Because the truth is, we're not supposed to die from disease. We're not supposed to die from disease, okay? When we are living in accordance with divine order, and we choose to incarnate here on the earth to learn lessons in a physical body, then ultimately, in divine order, when we're not underneath the matrix energy fuckery and all of the enslavement templates and the contracts and all that other shit, when that's not an issue, ultimately what we're supposed to do is be like, okay, well, I'm 192, 111 on my clock. Okay, I'm 192 years old. Yeah, it's been a good ride. I think I'm done. I'm done here on earth. I think I'm done. It's time for me to transition on to the next place. I think it's time for me to move. It's time for me to ascend or to evolve or to move on. In other words, you are supposed to have a free will choice as to how you move forward, right? But the matrix keeps us cycling back here through constant cycles of reincarnation, which is all about soul harvesting, taking our light in order to keep this false system alive. So almost everything we align ourselves to, because it's an energy harvesting system, everything you do that aligns yourself with the matrix takes your light. It takes your energy. I hope that makes sense. What does you want me to say about disease? Oh, okay. So almost every illness or sickness that ultimately takes us out of the matrix is a lifestyle disease. And when you think of the major things like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes, heart attacks, all of these things are lifestyle diseases born of the fact that we do not look after ourselves properly. And you can say, oh, but it's genetic. And even to that extent, it is a lifestyle disease, and it is also a sign of certain energetic disturbances cycling through family systems because of certain ways of operating that have not been addressed. That's how generational illnesses are able to continue their pattern. It's energy. I don't want to get too into that right now, but yeah. So our family systems, matrix family systems, are designed to make us comfortable in denying and betraying ourselves for a greater cause, quote unquote. So you're taught from an early age to deny and betray yourself for a greater cause. And this is especially for those of you who have been in family systems where you have been the appointed scapegoat. You are always the one who must sacrifice or you must deny or betray your truth in order to uphold the family dysfunction. And you must take on the role of being the dysfunctional one so that nobody else has to deal with themselves, okay? So from the beginning, parents are trained by tradition and society to take control of their children's solar plexus energy. And your solar plexus energy is your life force. And you have a certain amount of it every time you reincarnate onto this planet. And through the choices you make, you're either growing or you're dimming that light. And because the matrix system doesn't tell you this, everything is about getting you in contracts where they can feed off of your light. So most beings are not aware of this, but the first stop, the first juncture, the first place you stop to learn how to easily give up your light, or how to have it manipulated or harnessed or taken from you, is by way of your parents, who've been taught by tradition and society that in order to be parents, in order to exercise any kind of discipline over their children, then they must take control of their children's solar plexus energy. Okay, and I'm going to tell you how that occurs. So your solar plexus, as I was explaining in the last video, it is the seat of your personal will. It's where you make your choices and your decisions from as a sovereign being. And when you're a sovereign being, you are a being who is walking in divine integrity and alignment with who you are divinely and who God says you are divinely in this incarnation, who you've been crowned as being this incarnation. You're walking in divine alignment, and you are making choices based upon that, rooted in your sense of authority and autonomy over self. In other words, other beings are not making decisions for you in obvious or unconscious manipulative ways. Now, the Matrix teaches parents from the beginning that in order to discipline children, you must control them. And in order to control them, then you must break their will, right? You hear this all the time. You hear it especially if you are like a new parent. Your parents or your grandparents, parents from the previous generation or the one before, will often tell, especially when children begin to get into that toddler mode, they will start to come down on you about how you discipline your child and how you've got to make sure that you break that child's will. And they say it as if it's a commendable thing that you need to do as a parent. But what you're ultimately doing when you break a child's will is you are saying, I'm taking control over your solar plexus energy. Okay? And I want to be careful when I say this, because I'm not here to tell people how to parent. I did this myself with my children. I didn't know any better. There's no judgment here. I'm just telling you what it is that I've observed as a person who has lived through this, and as a person who has had to heal myself to be and to do better, and who is still in the process of healing. I'm far from a perfect mother, but I am healing. Okay, so yes. And I say that because I believe that my parental duty is not to control my children. I'm not here to control them. I'm not here to control their solar plexus energy, but I am here to protect them, and I am here to guide them. And my responsibility is first to the divine. And I will often tell people, that there is the greatest gifts that many of us will ever receive, that we know are divine, are our children. Because almost everything else we can get through our own intellect, our own skill, our talent, our personal, exerting our own will to do things. But children are a gift. They're a gift from the divine, and as such, our parental responsibility, it's to our children, but it's actually first to the divine. Our children are kind of lent to us. This is how I see it. Our children are lent to us, and our children are often come into our lives in order to help us spiritually. You know, our children are some of our greatest life teachers and the ones who point us onto the healing path. If I didn't have children, I would still be running wild, hurting myself. I might not even be alive. You get what I'm saying? Like, my children gave me purpose and a reason to be better and to do better. And that ultimately, you know, a lot of the time is what children come here to do also. They come here to help us to ascend, if we let them. But the Matrix teaches parents that they know everything and they're here to just order children around. And that is not the case. So, you know, like, you may have grown up, especially if you grew up in a Christian household, or you grew up in a household where beings like to use the Bible just to manipulate. They might not have even been, you know, people who read the Bible, but they knew the scriptures they needed, kind of like, you know, I shouldn't joke about this, but this is what it really was like. Like, back in the times of slavery on the plantations in America, they didn't let the slaves have the full Bible. They took out the book of Exodus because they didn't want them to know in any way that they were under any kind of enslavement. And they definitely didn't want them to know that there was a way to get out. And the only one that they would allow access to an altered Bible was the one slave who they knew they could manipulate the most in order to get him, because it often was a man. He would be the one who would teach the other slaves how to worship God, right? So they would give this particular person, who they knew could be easily emotionally manipulated because of their own wounding and need to be better than the other slaves, they would give them an altered Bible only with, like, the scriptures that talk about obey your master and all of this other stuff, which, in all frankness, when you look at the time frame of slavery and when the so-called authorized version of the King James Bible came out, there is an overlap in timelines. Like, it seems very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Like, why can't I think right now? It just seems very, very convenient. That's the word. Very, very convenient that the authorized version came out with. And anyway, I'm not going to get into that right now. Emotional manipulation. So, emotional manipulation, instead of teaching, instead of respecting a child's autonomy while guiding them into truth, a lot of parents have been taught to emotionally manipulate their children to get a certain outcome, right? And in turn, that teaches children that in order to get what they want, they must emotionally manipulate too. You see how this narcissistic empath template thing begins to be birthed. Because it really is all about emotional manipulation. Narcissists will emotionally manipulate an empath for their own purposes, but an empath will also use emotional manipulation tactics on a narcissist in order to get a false sense of love and acceptance from them. And this is all learned to varying degrees in childhood through family systems, okay? So the emotional manipulation is all about the training of the limbic system, okay? And the limbic system, well, it's complicated, but how I'm gonna break it down is it's how your brain and your nervous system are programmed by way of your emotional experiences, and then therefore what your nervous system becomes accustomed to in the way it moves emotionally, in the way it responds emotionally. It's the emotional programming and conditioning of the nervous system, and kind of like the commands that it responds to. Okay, so the example that your family sets in how they love you is the standard established within you. Okay, it's established in you mentally, emotionally, and even physically because it imprints upon your nervous system. Okay, so the example your family sets in how they love you is the standard established in you and what you will base your future love choices upon. Okay, so this is how the matrix fuckery and dysfunction in all ways is constantly cycling through us. Okay, now I want to read an excerpt from what it was that I've written. Okay, so this is from a book I'm writing. Okay, so within the population of those that have been born in the past 50 or so years have been beings who carry knowledge and information from the last turning of the age, as well as those who have chosen to incarnate in this form and are already fully ascended. These are often labeled as starseeds, crystal children, rainbow children, light workers, way showers, twin rays, etc. The title isn't as important as the purpose for their existence at this time. These beings came here on a mission to assist humanity in expanding its consciousness enough to ascend with the earth at its appointed time. They incarnated into families with a lot of trauma and ancestral darkness. Like Jesus, they came into these bloodlines to be the light of that family's world that leads those members into a new lineage as the earth ascends. These members came into these family lines to teach them how to love. They were often the children who brought attention to the dysfunction within the family dynamic and were then scapegoated for doing so. I want to take a minute to help you to comprehend energetic exchange within systems and what scapegoatism actually does. So within any system, there is an energy signature. That system can be your body, or it can be a family or community, for example. This energy signature in families has often been established over time and multiple generations. It consists of traditions, mindsets, behaviors, routines, and patterns. Systems don't like introduction of new energies or interruption to how they function and will do everything to return to what has been established as stasis or their signature energy balance. So think about when you begin to implement a new habit in your life, such as a new fitness regime. Your body and your mind will join forces to fight against the change you are introducing to your system until persistence overrides your old programming. Once your system adjusts to the change, it will recalibrate your energy signature, and this is when the fitness protocol becomes easy to do and implement. If you make it harder, again your system will fight until it readjusts. Well, family systems are the same, and this is why some of these bloodlines required certain beings to assist them in breaking out of deeply ingrained generational habits, sometimes referred to as generational curses, that were detrimental to the evolution of humankind and where we are heading. So in order to interrupt these family systems and purge the malignant energies contributing to these repeating cycles, certain children were born who were there to push family members out of the ignorance of the embedded darkness and into the light of truth and freedom. However, because systems don't like to be interrupted or changed, they will do everything to stay the same, including turning on one of their own. In the body, we see this exemplified in autoimmune disorders. In families and societies, we see it with scapegoatism. The individuals and family system do not want to heal all the ways they've been abused and are now in turn abusing, so they gaslight the one who is making them confront this truth. They transfer this to the scapegoat, who is now the container for all the trauma that is within the individual members and the family system. The scapegoat is indirectly and sometimes directly held responsible for the dysfunction, and so they then become the device that energetically holds the projections of all the darkness that nobody else wants to confront or process, and this manifests in a variety of ways. For example, a mother who has poor self-image may derive a false sense of confidence by tearing down her own child and making that child believe and feel that they are ugly, fat, stupid, or generally inferior. She takes her own thoughts and feelings about herself and dumps them onto the child because she doesn't know how to process this trauma. Instead of dealing with the reason why she is in so much pain and doesn't love herself, she projects and releases that pain onto the child so her burden feels lighter. It is an energy exchange enacted by the mother to keep her own dysfunctional energy signature at the point of stasis it has come to know due to unprocessed trauma. To upset that stasis would mean she would have to confront the reasons and experiences that have caused her to feel this way about herself, thus introducing information into her system that is wired to not like change. Furthermore, the guilt that comes from this transference causes more anger and frustration on the part of the mother, which she then transfers again onto the child. To make matters worse, she will also alleviate her own guilt by making the child either believe that they deserve such treatment, that there is something inherently wrong with them, or that her behavior is a normal expression of love and concern. This maintains the mother's cognitive dissonance so she can continue to abuse without accessing her feelings of remorse. This, of course, is a behavior and legacy of abuse she inherited and is passing on. It is the legacy that the one she is scapegoating has been sent to help her become aware of so she can heal and reach her love potential. When the other children and family members see how the mother treats the scapegoat, they naturally begin to emulate this behavior unconsciously. As they grow up, it just becomes the way everyone chooses not to deal with their trauma and pain, even the trauma accumulating in them for abusing another. The scapegoat grows to believe that either this is love or that something about them is flawed and not worthy of love, respect, and decency. Okay, so I know that was a lot. Close that down now. So the point of my sharing that is because, what was I going to say? It's literally like I had a thought and it was just taken away and I don't have any more notes. So what was I going to say about that? Let me go back to it now because I had it right in my mind. So many beings question like why some of this stuff is necessary for ascension, right? Like why did I have to come into this family, etc., etc. And the truth of the matter is that the generational curse breaker is the one who must carry the sins of the family, 133 on my clock, must wear the sins of the family as a garment before the family so that they are able to see. I hope that makes sense. So, for example, the person in the family who is an addict, a lot of the time the reason they're an addict is because their energy field has been so open to all of the trauma that they've had to take on and they've tried to find ways to cope with it, or because there's outright abuse and scapegoatism, and now they're carrying the brunt of energies that they don't know how to handle, and so they turn to addiction. And so ultimately, that person being addicted is not supposed to make a family become judgmental and turn their nose up and look the other way, or not help that person and, dismiss them, etc. It's actually supposed to make them look at that person and to see themselves, and to see how all of the craziness that they've chosen to take on as individuals and as a family system due to the matrix fuckery is actually ruining one of their own. But most of them don't want to do that, because in order to take a look at what is actually happening to that person, it means that they'd have to confront things within themselves that they don't want to look at. They don't want to heal. And the reason I want to talk about all of this also is because this is a big theme, Leo season. Because Leo season deals with reclaiming the inner child, all of these themes are coming up. They started to come up in Cancer season. And, in that excerpt from my book, I refer to a mother, but it's not only something that occurs with the mother-child relationship. It occurs with fathers and their children. It occurs with fathers who watch this kind of behavior, like I was saying yesterday, in the way that many of these men, one of the biggest ways they wound their children is in their passivity, in watching their emotionally wounded wives or mothers of their children destroy their own children and stand by and do nothing about it, thereby teaching the child that whether they're a boy or a girl, it doesn't matter, teaching the child that masculine energy doesn't really protect. And the reality is that the masculine energy within is formed by the way that we connect with the first example of physical masculine energy, which is by way of our relationship with our fathers. So if our fathers don't give us the physical example of protecting us against things that would emotionally or mentally damage us, physically damage us too, spiritually damage us, then how are we supposed to do that for ourselves? And then how are we supposed to go out into the world and choose friends, partners, work, things that actually reflect the wholeness of who we are? How are we supposed to be protected in the choices we make if we're not ever shown that? You get what I'm saying? So it's such a big, all of the healing we're going through right now, we're really getting to a lot of the root energies of all of this in order to see it and to fully clear it. Because some of you may have already walked away from your families. You may have walked away from them years ago. You may have walked away from them decades ago, because you realize this stuff, but your limbic system still holds remembrance. Your nervous system still holds remembrance of this. And this is why these past few years, especially since 2020, it's been so tough on us, because we're literally letting go of these dense energies from the memory of our literal DNA. And then for some of us, not to go too much into another tangent, but for some of us, the very family members that you've incarnated into this lifetime with, they are characters from other lifetimes and timelines where you carry so much karmic shit with them. And now you're dealing with everything at once, and you're not recognizing or realizing that either, because you've forgotten who you are. You've forgotten that all of this exists because of all of the matrix fuckery, which is ultimately designed to always, fuck you out of your truth, and not in a good way. Well, I don't know if fucking anyone out of their truth it can never be good. But I digress. So the 8 Leo season, the 8/8 portal, which we just are about a week out of now. Okay, so that number 8 and why it's so significant. So for one thing, so many of our galactic codes for the year ahead come in through that portal, right? Our resources for being in divine alignment and what we need, or not even just what we need, but what we want, because the divine isn't interested in just in you surviving. The divine is interested in you thriving and doing well and living your divine purpose. And so the 8-8 portal is one of the ways that we are provided for in terms of what it is that we need in order to live well. For as long as we know this and we're in divine alignment and we are able to connect with that. But one of the ways that the main way we're taken out of the ability to do that is through the family conditioning and the program, which is a foundation that sets us up to be continually energy harvested through the matrix. So there was something else I wanted to mention, older notes. This is from ages ago. So Leo energy is very much attached to karmic cycles. Very, very much attached to karmic cycles, because of people who don't heal from their childhood wounds, people who don't heal from all of the ways that they were programmed out of their truth from the very beginning. Foundationally, when we don't heal from that, we stay stuck. And so this is why when I say for many of you, this year has been and I brought it up in the last video I did, how we're getting to the very root of issues, the roots and all the residue. This is why right now, because we are literally retraining, we're retraining our limbic and our nervous systems for one thing. That's really a big message that was coming through for Cancer season, how we are learning how to regulate our nervous systems in ways that are healthy, because most of us, we didn't come into situations where our mothers even were able to do that for themselves, let alone us, right? So we're learning how to do that, but we're learning how to do that because we are also we're learning how to do that because our limbic systems must be retrained, but we're learning how to do that. And because we're doing that, the things that have programmed our limbic system that are no longer in alignment with this new standard of nervous system regulation must go also. And that's what's happening this Leo season too. So Leo energy is all about ultimately also how we are able to connect our physical reality with our divine truth. And we do that by way of our heart, which is also connected to Leo energy. So Leo is physically rules over the heart, energetically rules over the solar plexus as well as the heart chakra. So it's kind of connected to both. This is how integral the Leo energy is, and not because of not because of any other reason other than the fact that Leo is what connects you to your inner child. It's why Jesus spoke about how you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven if you don't first become again like a child. Okay, it's why in, when you speak about the Egyptian pantheon and Ma'at, and how she weighs the heart against the feather to see if you're going to enter into the golden fields of Elysium, okay, which is, again, the kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, as Jesus calls it also. It's not something that you're supposed to enter when you physically die. It's where you enter when you've rebirthed yourself into your divine truth. Right here is when you enter into Eden, into the kingdom, into the Elysian fields, whatever you want to call it. Your entry point is through your heart. It's why your heart is a stargate. It's why at every turn they did everything to mess with the solar plexus, because the solar plexus, when it connects to your heart and it shines. It's like your sun, the sun rising, and it shines through that chakra. That's when the stargate opens. It's the rising of the sun. The return of the sun is what opens your stargate. The rising of your solar plexus. Now, everything in the matrix and its family systems through its energy harvesting is purposely done to not only 144 my clock, not only to get control over your solar plexus, take control over your own personal will, your own drive, your drive and motivation and all of those things, so you're no longer making choices from your seat of divinity and authority and sovereignty, but you're making choices based upon pleasing others or what others say you're supposed to do, being manipulated emotionally and mentally, gaslit, all that other stuff in order for other beings to command your energy and your will. When you are able to rid yourself of all of those external energies that have been pulling at your solar plexus and puppeteering you your whole life, because from the beginning, your will was broken and you were taught to hand over your power to your parents, right? And then you were taught to repeatedly do that in all of your exchanges, for the most part, in varying ways, to varying degrees, depending on who you are. So the rising of the sun comes when you have liberated your solar plexus from all external influences, and you have healed yourself of all of the heaviness of those emotions, because your solar plexus is deeply connected to your emotional foundation. Okay, not necessarily always your emotional expression, but your emotional foundation. Okay, that's why it's kind of like connected to the limbic system, because the limbic system is literally the imprint of your emotions upon your nervous system. So this is what's happening right now. It's a clearing of the foundation, the emotional foundation that caused you to give away your power to begin with, because you didn't have a choice, because you were a child. So as we deal with the letting go of all of those external energies that have controlled and manipulated our will, our life force, our light, and as we let go of all of the density that has occurred because of our frequent bouts with self-betrayal and abuse and all of the other bad and rotten fruit that has been a result of us being trained to give up our power or to have our power taken away from us, whether it was either from parents, and even as I was saying, in that excerpt, it doesn't just, in these family systems, it's not just about the parent, because the parent then teaches all of the other family members how to treat you too. So if you're a scapegoat, which many of you are, scapegoats tend to be the generational curse breakers, because your energy field is so, it's not only that it's open, but it's like you're born to transmute. And even before you know this, it's like beings know this about you unconsciously, So scapegoats are often the generational curse breakers, because you are energetic alchemist for the most part, and you don't know this. And so the whole time, the point is to keep you asleep to this fact, because for as long as you're asleep to this fact, the dysfunction can continue, and you can be the dumping ground for it. But this is important, because as the generational curse breaker, you have in some ways come to feel you're here to break these energies, and as such you experience them all. I spoke about that a few videos ago, like how badass you are, that you've carried so much pain and it didn't destroy you. And when you give back certain beings, when you give back the pain that certain beings are still trying to place on your fields in order to manipulate your solar plexus energy, when you give them back just their own pain, they buckle underneath it. But you've been carrying the pain, some of you have been carrying the pain of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people your whole life. And you're still here. Okay, because you were you were built for this kind of stuff. Not that it's okay, but that it's actually just a testament to how powerful you are. So now, while you are purging yourself of all of those energies that have brought such heaviness upon your own soul, upon your own light, that have snuffed out your light in the throwing of their darkness onto you, you're allowing your sun to rise. And as your sun rises, your heart is becoming as light as a feather. Your heart is becoming, because it's no longer weighed down by those energies and those emotions that a lot of them weren't even yours, but it's also not weighed down by the residual energies that have accumulated in your fields as a response, as a result, because of having to deal with all of that abuse and energetic violations and those energetic violations. So as you heal, your heart is becoming as light as a feather, and your sun, your solar plexus, is rising again, the return of the sun, so that your heart chakra can open, and it's your stargate that opens. And when your stargate opens, you are reunited and reconnected with your multidimensional reality, and then you get to stream all of these things that have been being given to you, that these other beings have been manifesting off of and taking. Because for as long as you were not plugged into your truth, for as long as you were in the dark, your sun hadn't risen to open your stargate and to experience that reality, other beings, the ones who knew, especially the ones at the top of these, societies, orders, factions, institutions, the ones who have been setting this up and doing this for the longest time, they had access to all of that, but no more. This is why this 8-8 portal, it's been so important to go through it alone, because the 8-8 portal is always to do 8. Put it on the side. It's the infinity. It's all about energy. It's all about energy, bringing energy into balance, but it's also about karma. It's about karmic links, karmic loops. It's about breaking out of it by reaccessing self, by reaccessing the heart, by reclaiming the inner child. You can't get into the kingdom of heaven if you don't first become as a child. By allowing your sun to rise so that your stargate can open and you can be who you are divinely on this planet, on Earth, as you already are known for being in the cosmos. To heal your inner child is to gain access to your stargate and free yourself from living purely in the lower chakras. So, the trusty vibrational scale. Oh my goodness, where is my selenite wand? I hope that all of this is making sense and that it's flowing. That's what my hope is, my intention is. Okay, so the vibrational scale is kind of like, this is a painted one, so it's not necessarily 100% correct, but I did my best, okay? So the vibrational scale works with the colors system of the chakras, right? So I've told you many times that like fear and below is kind of where they want to keep you stuck in the matrix. And fear is actually, it's kind of where your sacral chakra begins to rise into your solar plexus. Because fear is very much how they keep you in states of guilt. Even more than keeping you in shame, which is connected to the solar plexus, but it's also connected to the root chakra in a different way. Vibrationally speaking, shame is the lowest vibrating emotion on the vibrational scale, and so it's very much in the root chakra area of this. But the seat of toxic shame, the foundation of it, is ultimately the solar plexus. It's very interconnected, but I don't really want to go into that right now. But I say all of that because the whole point of matrix living is to keep you stuck in the lower chakras, to keep you stuck in your base desires, to keep you stuck, ever cycling, wanting to fulfill those base desires without recognizing or remembering or knowing that you are more than just a physical being. And the reason your base desires will never actually be satisfied is because there's no satisfaction for as long as you're denying any part of self. For as long as if you are not whole, you will forever be in a state of longing. They know this about you in the Matrix. They know that for as long as you're not whole, you will forever be in a state of longing. And if you're in a state of longing, you will forever be looking for ways to fill that. And because of your programming in the Matrix, you've been programmed to constantly look outside of you. So if they can keep you in states of not being whole, in states of being fragmented, they keep you in states of longing. And then your programming constantly tells you to look outside of yourself to fill that up. Hence the way that they keep you in karmic cycles. And how do they fragment you in the first place? To get you into these, to get you locked into these constant desires, constantly desiring, and never really obtaining, because you can't unless you know truth and you're reconnected and you're in your wholeness. How do they do that? Through wounding you as a child, through teaching family systems and structures how to abuse their own and to call it love when it's nothing but narcissistic, empathic templates that are taught to you from the very beginning to varying degrees. You're taught from the very beginning to constantly sacrifice yourself for others instead of, and don't get me wrong, there is a time for sacrifice. But what I say to people at this point when they try to make me feel bad about certain things is that I will not sacrifice myself for dysfunction. I will sacrifice myself for a higher cause. And not even myself. I will sacrifice certain things. I will put aside. I will wait. I will fast. I will, what's the word I'm looking for? I will abstain from present pleasure or instant pleasure for a longer term outcome that ultimately is going to be greater and better for myself and those I love. That's my level of sacrifice. But I'll do it for a higher cause. I will not sacrifice myself for dysfunction. I will not sacrifice myself to be pulled down into a lower state. But I will sacrifice something to get higher, divinely. And when I say sacrifice something, again, I'm talking about I will abstain from something I want in the short term to get something that's more beneficial for myself and those I love or the collective in the long term. That's how we use sacrifice, not in the way they taught us in the Matrix. You don't sacrifice yourself in ways that cause you to be fragmented. Nope. And you don't sacrifice others in ways that cause them to be fragmented too. So, most people never get to live in states above their root and their sacral. Above the orange and the red. They even tell you this stuff. They be telling us all of this shit. When you're in debt, you're in the red. What does that mean? You're in your root chakra. You're unstable. You're not grounded. You have no stability or roots because your root chakra is connected to your finances and your financial health and wellness. In the red. They tell you all of this shit. They know. So to heal your inner child is to gain access to your stargate and free yourself of living purely in your lower chakras, in states of constantly chasing base desires that can never be satisfied outside of your wholeness. It is why matrix pleasure is never satisfying and it leads to addiction. Matrix pleasure is never satisfying. It leads to addiction. Because that's what it's supposed to do. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. Because if they can get you addicted, they can get you, an addicted person, solar energy can be controlled all the more. It's all a big, like, it's a Hunger Games thing. And what it is that they're after is your soul. And not the way that you were taught in church if you went to church. Your soul is your light. It's your sun. It's your solar plexus. It is your ticket into your divinity here on earth. It is your ticket into living the way that the divine always planned for you to live. And in doing so, implementing that for yourself, and therefore opening the door for others to do the same and making it a collective reality. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that I haven't been too all over the place, because there was just so much. And I don't even think I covered it all. But I didn't even know how to begin to cover all of this. So I hope that it's helpful. And I hope that it's cohesive and that it makes sense. I'm going to go into my deck. I think it's called Do You Believe in Magic? Another beautiful deck that one of you generously donated to the channel. Thank you, thank you. Let me get you one card before I buzz off. Oh. So I'm not ready, but what came out was expectations. Don't seek anyone's approval. And universe, we're all just stardust. Beautiful, right? Don't dim your light. I'm still going to get a card. But don't dim your light by seeking external validation for who you are. Don't dim your light by following others' opinions on you or how they think you're supposed to be. And that's in the spiritual community too, guys. What we become really good at doing, and I tell you this because I did it too, is taking matrix principles and then applying them to spirituality and thinking we're free. Because instead of following a celebrity, now we're following a person who apparently is enlightened. No, we don't follow anyone. We blaze our own trail for ourselves. And yes, other people can come in and help to guide us. But what they ultimately should be doing is guiding us deeper into our own light. Not trying to get us to follow them, but to show us how to magnify our own light. That's the point of guides. It's the same thing in the spirit. Your guide doesn't try to tell you to follow it, to be like it. It tells you what it is you need to know from its own expertise that's going to help you to climb into your power. And when that guide is done doing its job with you, it might move on and open you up to work with a different guide, depending on your contracts and your mission. Lioness, I love it. Lioness, you've earned all your stripes. You've earned all your stripes. This is some beautiful Leo energy. You know, it's all about, it's like, this is what's on the other side of the healing. This is what's on the other side of opening the Stargate. It's sitting down in the sun and knowing who you are, and can't nobody take that away from you at that point. you get to a certain point on this journey where you become, it's like nobody can tell you anything about yourself, and not in an arrogant way, but in a like, I know who I am. I'm so secure in who I am. I know who I am divinely. Nobody can ever take me off my throne again. I know who I am, and I know who you're not going to try to make me out to be. Because here's the thing also is that you're a different person to every person who's ever going to be around you, because it's all dependent upon their perspective. And it's all dependent upon circumstances. You know, there are beings who you will be a villain in their lives forever because of, you know, things that have occurred historically, but also because they don't want to look at the ways you change. They don't want to do that because they don't want to change. You know, so princess, you can be your own knight. Yes, you can. Man or woman, it doesn't matter. The point is that you have always been your own savior. You have always been your own savior. And this again is just like, 13 is also like, it's a death card, but this is the rebirth energy of the death card, you know, with the lioness. And 1, you can be your own knight. Like, this is magician energy in the tarot. This is like beginning again. But not beginning again. It's like, it's not even beginning again. It's beginning. It's a new beginning with all of your resources because you saved yourself. You saved yourself. This is a job that only you can do. There's nobody else that can do this for you. There's nobody else that can do this really with you. Even when you walk with others, this is a solitary journey. Nobody can recover your light or your soul but you. Nobody can rescue you from this fuckery but you. It's all on us. It's all on us, and you're doing it. You've done it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I hope that this teaching was cohesive. I hope it reaches those who need to hear it. Feel free to share it if you think it's going to help someone else. Yes. I'm sending you guys so much love, joy, peace, stability, focus, all that you need in order to really tune into your power and your truth and your value, and to remember again who you are. And there's so much coming back right now. There's so much remembrance that is flooding us right now. It's coming forth as our sun rises, as our sun returns. It's an emotionally grueling time, but it's a highly rewarding time simultaneously. So remember that and lean into that aspect, because so much beauty is on the horizon for so many of you. So yes, I'm going to love you, and I will see you again later. Until next time, be well. Mwah.